Are you leaving money on the floor when you price your books? Or maybe you're just darn confused by all the options you have and how do you price this and how do you price that and what's a good price? Well, this episode, we're going to be talking about different strategies for pricing your book so that you can maximize your royalties.
Are you an entrepreneur, small business owner, or consultant looking to boost your authority, influence, and impact? The Author Switch podcast with best-selling, award-winning author Carma Spence is your answer. Tune in for actionable advice, powerful strategies, and engaging interviews to turn on your author switch and take your business to the next dimension.
The Author Switch.
Hello, and welcome to the Author Switch podcast. I am your host, Carma Spence, and I help executive coaches, business leaders, and consultants write, market, and publish their client-attracting books so that they can grow their business. Today, I'm going to be talking about how to price your book. And there are lots of different ways to do that. And it depends on what your goals are, of course. But I'm going to be going through some various strategies and ideas that you can keep in mind so that you can price the book the best way for you and your business. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is pricing models. There are lots of different strategies out there. There's the free. You can enroll an ebook into Kindle Unlimited, and you can actually offer it for free as sort of a lead magnet into your business or into a series of books. It works really, really well if you have a series of books and the first book in the series is free, because then people will read the first book and go, oh, I want to know the rest, and they'll buy the rest of your series. So this is one way to do it. There's also some people price it at bare minimum, making next to no royalties because they want more people to get it. And then some people just slap a price on it and go, what the hey, we'll see what happens. I found for me and my business, the way I like to price it is, number one, I want to cover costs. So if it's a physical book, you have to price it a certain amount or you're going to be paying people to buy your book. I'm not interested in paying people to buy my book. So I always price my book at least a couple of dollars over the price of all the printing and Amazon and all that kind of stuff. But if you're publishing through multiple publishers, like you might publish some versions through Amazon and maybe another through Lightning Source or Lulu or someplace like that, I recommend figuring out what the best price is for all platforms so that you're not saying, well, if you buy it from Amazon, it's one price, but if you buy it over here, it's another price. That will bite you in the butt. Don't do that. Find a price that works best. But before you even do that, this is something I do each time, is I find 5 books that are like my book. How much are they charging for it? And I average that price out, and that gives me a ballpark of what my book should be priced at. So if all the books were hovering around $5.99, I would do my best to make sure it was $5.99. Now that said, take into account size of the book, because the smaller the book, the cheaper it can be. The thicker the book, you can't price it below. Also, and this is just a pro tip because this almost bit me on the butt, paper and ink. I thought it would be really cool when I put out Home Sweet Home page to have the chapter pages be all black with white lettering. Well, apparently that much ink caused the paper to warp. So they were going to upgrade me to a higher quality of paper that would make the book now cost more than I was charging. And given the thickness of the book and what the book was about, a higher price didn't make any sense for that type of book. So if you're going to do that fancy stuff, you want it to be the kind of book that warrants the higher price. So what I ended up doing is I just switched it out so it's black ink on white paper, got normal paper, and there you go. Those are things you need to keep in mind when it comes to pricing, because the paper quality affects the pricing. The next thing I want to touch on is the role of market research in selling prices. Like I said, I usually take 5 books, but they're not just the top 5 that show up when I research. You have to look at each book and say, okay, is this book like mine, not only in topic, but in size and intent? You can definitely get the size by going down the Amazon page. It tells you how many pages it is. Intent, you read it. Who does it seem to be written for? Is it written for an audience like mine? So if the book is same topic, similar audience, and similar page size, take that down. How much are they charging for it? Find 5 books like that, average that. That gives you the ballpark. Do you price it at that, or do you go up or lower? If you price it on the low end, you may or may not reach more clients. It depends on who your clients are. So, for example, if I was trying to reach everyday home cook moms, they probably don't have a lot of discretionary money, so a cheaper book would probably reach more of them. But if I'm trying to reach high level CEOs who make lots and lots of money and buy luxury things, they're probably less inclined to buy a cheap book. They'll probably buy a book that seems like it's giving them more value for their money. So you need to think about who is your audience and what price points are they going to respect and expect and buy at. Now, there is a difference in the pricing between ebooks and physical books. Why? Ebooks cost nothing to create. They're just little pieces of digital dots in the ether. They aren't physical. They don't have printing costs. They don't have paper costs. They don't have any of that stuff. So you can price them as low as 99 cents or as much as the same price as your physical book. Depending on who you talk to, one is better than the other. And it's like completely the opposite. I like pricing my ebooks on the lower end because I found that when I price them the same as my regular book, it lowered the sales of everything, even the physical book. Why? Why does that happen? What I found when I dug into it is that sometimes a person will buy your ebook to test it out. They like it, they buy the physical book. But they're not going to buy a tester book at $6.99. They will buy a tester book if it's 99 cents or like $1.99, sometimes even $2.99. So when you price the ebook version cheaper, you actually end up attracting, yes, you're going to attract a lot of tire kickers. Of course you are. But you're also going to attract all those people who are going to test out your book and buy. They're basically double buyers. They're double buyers. And there are lots of different kinds of double buyers. There are double buyers who buy the ebook and the audiobook because they like to follow the audiobook along in the ebook, or sometimes they'll buy a physical book in an audiobook. There are people who buy the ebook and then they buy the physical book. There are people who buy all 3. So my pricing strategy, again, take this with a grain of salt. Who is your audience? Who you're trying to reach? All those kinds of things play into it. But I always liked pricing my ebooks cheaper. Physical books, now you're going to have to price it at or above its cost. And when you upload it to Amazon or Lulu or Lightning Source, they tell you this is how much it costs to produce this book. Then I recommend giving at least a $2 wiggle room because production costs can change and suddenly the cost of producing your book goes up and you don't necessarily get enough warning about that before now you're suddenly paying people to buy your book. Don't go there. So always do a buffer. Nothing says, I mean, the book could cost $3 to produce and you could still sell it for 50. Probably not a client attracting book, but it doesn't matter. The important thing is to give at least a $2 buffer above the cost of the book. And the cost of the book is depending on how many pages, whether it's soft cover, hardcover, whether it's glossy or matte, all those things go into it. So those are things you need to think about. Now I want to explain royalties because so many people are confused by royalties. Whether you are publishing through a traditional publisher or self-publishing, you get paid in royalties. So when someone buys a book, a portion of that money goes to producing the book, and then the rest goes to the people who it goes to. If you are self-publishing, you get all of it, whatever that is, whatever the leftover is. If you are going with a traditional publisher, you get after their cut. So for example, When I published 57 Secrets for Branding Yourself Online, I did it with a boutique publisher. It cost about, I think, about $3 to produce the book. So $3 went there. The book cost $15. So $3 went to the hard costs. Then the publisher took a cut. So whenever I went to go buy a copy of the book, it cost me $9. Not because it cost $9 to publish, to create, to produce, but because the publisher got a cut before I got the book. So every copy of that book that I have in my possession cost me around $9. And then I sell for $15 and get whatever the difference is, $6. However, if I were to self-publish that very same book, I would get, like, if it costs $3 to produce, I would get $6 more. So that's one reason why people like to go with self-publishing over traditional publishing, because it's cheaper to produce, and there are lots of other differences. I can point you to a podcast that talks about that, but that's one thing. The other thing about royalties that confuses people is when someone gets an advance, they think, oh, it's an advance, and then I'll make all this money with royalties. What an advance is, that's a short term for advance on the royalties. So you don't get paid anymore after that advance until your book pays back the advance you got. So if you don't sell enough books to cover the advance, your advance is all you got. You have to sell enough books that it makes the advance back and then goes beyond. So working with a traditional publisher, yeah, you can get an advance, but you may not get anything else afterwards if your book doesn't sell well. So, things to think about. That said, why do you want to go with a third-party person? Why isn't everybody self-publishing? Why do you want to go through a traditional publisher? Some people do it because they think the traditional publisher will market them. If you're Stephen King, they might. No, you're still in charge of your marketing. What a traditional publisher does, above any other thing that they might do for you, the number one thing a traditional publisher does for you is third-party endorsement. Somebody who knows a lot about books said your book is worthy, and that has clout to other readers. Not all readers, but some readers. Some readers will go, oh, you got published by Simon & Schuster. Your book must mean something. That's why you go for a traditional publisher in my book. I am done with this half of the podcast. I'm going to take a quick break. After the break, I'm going to be talking about understanding print-on-demand costs, how discounts and promotions can impact your book sales, and a couple of other things. So, including the last one, which is going to be really cool. Do please stay tuned. I will see you after the break.
In a world where the pen is mightier than the sword, one entrepreneur embarks on the ultimate quest to conquer the blank page and unleash a book that will change the game forever. Armed with Carma Spence's masterful strategies, our hero faces down deadlines, battles self-doubt, and navigates the treacherous waters of publishing, all in a race against time to bring their message to their ideal clients. The journey of 1,000 pages begins with a single word. Are you ready for your adventure? You can make it to the finish line. The saga begins now on Amazon.
Hello and welcome back to the Author Switch podcast. My name is Carma Spence, your host, and I help executive coaches, business leaders, and consultants write, publish, and market client-attracting books so that they can grow their business. Before the break, I was talking about understanding various price models for books, the role of market research in setting prices, how you price print versus digital, and I explained a little bit about how royalties work. Now I want to talk a little bit about understanding print-on-demand costs versus their impact on pricing. Now, I did cover a lot of this in the first half, but basically, here are the impacts of print-on-demand that impact how much your book needs to be. There is the cost of paper. So higher quality paper, higher cost of book. Lower quality of paper, lower cost of book, but less things you can do with it. There is the price of little things like glue. There's the price of the cover, which is usually a cardstock, or in case of hardback, it's actual cardboard. There is the cost that the printers themselves want to pay themselves. So they have their costs and then they add on to that so that they make a living, which is fine, but it adds to the cost of the book. There's the cost of shipping, and there's the cost of printing. There's the cost of distribution. All those things go into what they quote you as the cost of producing your book. So again, this affects how much you can charge for your book. Like, do you want to charge $6.99? What if your book costs $6 to print? Then you are in danger of paying people to buy your book. I don't like paying people to buy my book. I want them to pay me for the book. That's the whole thing here. Anyway, so those are some things you need to keep in mind. That's why Amazon will give you a 70% royalty when you price your ebook a certain way, because it costs nothing to produce an ebook. So now there's a whole idea of discounts, promotions. How does that impact your sales? Well, when you are launching your book, especially the ebook, you can't do this with a physical book, but with an ebook launch, 99 cents is usually the going price. Why? Because you can promote it to all these lists of people who buy books for 99 cents. And that way you're able to get to bestseller. Why do you want to get to bestseller? You want to get to bestseller because then Amazon thinks your book is worthy and pushes it out to other people. And saying that you're a bestseller sells more books. So it's like selling more books sells more books. It's just the way it works. So pricing it as 99 cents at first for the first week or two helps you get that ball rolling. Now, do you want to keep it at that price? That is up to you. But low priced books have a lower priced perception. So the types of people that you will attract to reading your book might be lower quality. They might not be your ideal clients. Like I said in the first half, you really want to do a dive into who is your ideal reader. Who are you trying to attract with your book? And what price would resonate with them? What price would they respect? What price would they pay for a book that would make them go, I better read this because I paid this? If you pay 99 cents to put it in your Kindle, you may never read it. These are things you need to consider. So not only do you need to consider the price of the book, but the price that the psychology has. Next up, I want to talk about production costs beyond what your self-publisher talks about, because there are other costs that go into producing a book before you even upload it to Kindle, Lulu, Lightsource. What are they? And I've talked about them in other episodes more deeply, but I want you to be aware and factor these in to the amount of money that you invest in your book. There is editing, proofreading, design. And design is both the cover and the interior. Now, sometimes you can do that on your own. Canva has fantastic templates that you can use to design your own covers. Will it be as effective if a better designer does it? Maybe, maybe not. I did all mine for the series. I've designed most of the covers of my books, and I haven't had any hurt in sales. But I have a little bit of a design eye. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. You can get book cover designs for relatively inexpensive these days. You can get them for under $500 from a variety of places. There's one place that throws up sales every once in a while. There's 99 Designs where you can hold a contest for like $300 and get a whole bunch of designers vying for the honor of designing your book cover. And they give you samples. So you can pick and choose. I like this design. Go with that one, and you pay that person. So factor that in that cost. Proofreading and editing, you can do that cheaply. You can do that yourself. I highly recommend hiring at least one professional editor. I do. And I'm an award-winning editor, and I still hire an editor. So I highly recommend that. The last tip I want to give you, this is kind of juicy, and I saved it for last because it's so juicy. All right. And that is pre-orders and bundles. Okay, pre-orders are a double-edged sword. If you put your book up for pre-sale and nobody pre-orders Amazon automatically has a hit against you. They're like, this book isn't doing so well. They're not going to put it out in front of so many people. But if you can get sales during your pre-order, you land on the first day when all those pre-orders come in as real sales, that helps push you to bestseller. So if you can work it out with your audience that they pre-order your book, and it all depends on your audience and how big your list is and how engaged your social media following is, all those things. If you can get the pre-order to work, it's a really good strategy, especially if you're working on a book series. I will drop the link to Jonathan Milligan's interview that I did for the Author Switch, because he talks about this strategy where you have a book for pre-order and then it drops and now you've got the next book for pre-order. And so the book series pulls people along. Bundles are a great way to go. They're a little bit more challenging on Amazon, but you can do them on your own, or ebook bundles. And there's two kinds of bundles you can do. You can do a bundle of your own books. You can say, this is an ebook bundle. And you put all the files into one file and you give it one of those fancy little box set covers, and you can sell it that way. But here's a strategy that if you know other authors who are in your genre who wouldn't mind partnering with you, you can bundle your book with a bunch of other people's books and sell that on Amazon. And what that does is if it's the first book, like if all these people have more than one book and it's their first book in this box set, now people, it's like getting a sampler tray of books. And people will read them and they'll find their favorite authors and go buy more for that authors. That may be you, it may be one of the other people, but basically you're getting visibility in front of their audiences, attracting new readers to you. This works really well in the fiction circuit, but I'm pretty sure it could probably work in the nonfiction as well, especially if it was like anthologies or memoirs or things where you could easily say, hey, 5 books for the price of 1, something like that. So leveraging pre-orders and bundles can help you reach new audiences that you wouldn't reach under normal circumstances. This is the end of today's episode of the Author Switch. I hope you found it helpful and useful, and that you will be able to better, more intelligently price your books from now on. This is Carma Spence saying ciao for now. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Author Switch podcast. If you enjoyed today's show and want to support its mission, here's how to help. First, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your engagement helps my channel grow and reach more aspiring and established authors. Your ratings and reviews are invaluable. They help me reach more listeners and continue delivering top-notch content. To catch up on past episodes, including those no longer available on podcast platforms, visit authorswitch.com/episodes. There, you can choose to watch or listen to your favorite episodes at your convenience. If you'd like to show additional support, consider dropping a tip in the tip jar at buymeacoffee.com/Carma Spence. Your contributions help keep the podcast running and are greatly appreciated. Thank you for being a part of the Author Switch community. Until next time, keep writing.